Hey, Raindrops. On today's episode of Reality with the King, we have an exclusive. I haven't been this excited since I interviewed all the celebrities that I do, but this particular person to me is the gift that keeps on giving. She's the eighth housewife of the Real Housewives of Orange County. But no, all jokes aside, we have so much to get into. She's my friend. I love me some Kiki Monique. Ladies, jump to me, gays and days. Give it up for the reason for this season. Hey, Kiki girl.
Hey, what's going on?
Kiki, how famous are you now?
Please, trust me. As I was like, I'm like, are people sick of hearing my name? Because I'm like, I feel like I'm sick of hearing my name, but I guess everyone knows my name now.
No, listen, you are the most talked about non-cast member in Real Housewife history, which to me is super fascinating. But before we get into the conversation about what's been happening this season and you clearing the air as well, I do want to start with you though, Kiki Monique. Set the record straight. Are you a blogger or a journalist?
I, you know what? I don't think I'm either one of those things, but I wouldn't, I don't care if people want to categorize me as those. I'm fine to take those labels. I just think that people have a certain attachment or identity of what they believe a blogger is versus what they believe a journalist is. And I think we live in a world where creators have sort of evolved. And I've become this sort of hybrid of like, I like to give people news they're nosy about. That's my tagline. And I want to do it in a way that people can absorb it. People can't absorb news the way that we used to. They have very short, limited time, attention spans because of TikTok, because of these things. And that's why my audience really loved me, because I was able to give them, really, direct information in like 60 seconds or less. And my whole point was I was always going to source, I was always going to find references. I'm not someone who typically, does blind items, does rumors. That's not my niche. I delve into that niche, I will read those things. It's just not what I do.
Okay, so how did you get your start? Because you are on Radio Andy. You co-host a daily show, Reality Check, with the icon, the legend, Real Housewives of New York star, Dorinda. So, but like, how did you get started in the business in terms of doing what you're doing now?
I actually have a background. I did actually go to school for journalism. So, like, that's not something that people know because I don't talk about it because my path really did skew from that. I spent a lot of years in corporate world doing not that. I talk about this because, I talk about my personal life a lot. I ended up in a bad relationship. I got completely off track. And the best thing that happened to me, I know this sounds crazy, was COVID. COVID lockdown was the best thing to happen for me because I lost everything. I lost absolutely everything. I had nothing. And the only thing I learned TikTok. Everyone was on TikTok. And at the time, there weren't a lot of people. A lot of people were doing dances and lip syncing. I was like, I don't do any of that, but I talk. And at that time, not a lot of people were doing talking on TikTok. So I grew pretty quickly because I was like, here, I'm going to talk about pop culture. I'm going to talk about your favorite reality shows. Now everyone on TikTok does that. But in 2020, back then, it really wasn't like that. So I just started, reporting on that. And then I kind of sort of switched over because I was like, I don't want to just do reality TV. And I got into, pop culture, true crime stuff. And I covered the Johnny Depp trial. And that's where a lot of my
Mm.
followers really got to know me.
And now you have a whole new legion of followers who know you as the person that gave the Real Housewives of Orange County the best storyline, the most controversial storyline, albeit good or bad, since Brooks allegedly lied about cancer. Like this is, listen, Kiki Monique, Miss Thingy, you have resurrected this show, although it had three consecutive great seasons, but you have breathed new life into this just by being yourself. Let's get right into it. Your name came up every single episode this season, starting with episode one. I want to go backwards a bit because I want you to really, very succinctly explain to us how did you get in contact with Katie Janella, or how did Katie Janella get in contact with you to begin with?
I always follow, new housewives that interest me whenever they're announced. Here we have this, Asian beautiful woman joining OC. I was like, of course I'm going to follow her. Go to follow her. She's already following me. I love that. I'm sure you experience that too. You're very popular. You follow people that are already following you and you already feel like you have a connection. I think that that's great. People are thinking I'm saying as a negative thing. I'm like, no, I think that's awesome. And so, she writes, I'm honored. I write back, looking forward to the season. And so we just develop a little rapport. I do host Reality Checked on Radio Andy. We obviously get bookings all the time. And I know she wanted to come on our show because at the time, after her season, Emily was saying she lived in San Diego. There was a lot of things that Emily was throwing out there. She was like, I want to set the record straight about some things. I was like, come on. Her and Jen came on my show. They were actually on Zoom. So we did it virtually, but, I promoted the clips. It was great. After the show, Katie threw me, her, and Jen on a group chat and was like, had so much fun on the show. If you're ever in OC, hit us up. Great. Flash forward. And then after that text exchange, we then, continued to just have a little banter back and forth. I did go down to OC separately to have lunch with a friend. And I was like, oh, while I'm here, let me hit up Katie and Jen on that group chat and just let them know I'm here. I said, hey, headed to lunch. If you're around, let's get a drink or something. Jen was like, I'm in Mexico. Sorry, I'm going to miss it. Katie was like, oh, I'm running around. I'm shopping for the reunion. The reunion was like 2 or 3 days away. She was like, but I can, stop by. So I head over to lunch. She stops by for lunch. We just have a good old session. Like we're just chatting, having a good time. I was not there to be reporting, having off the record conversations. I was literally there just like hanging out with people as we do in this industry. We just make relationships.
So you reach out to Katie Jen. I'm going to be in the OC. You guys told me whenever I'm there to let you guys know. I'm letting you know. Jen's in Mexico with her finance fiance Ryan, and then that leaves you and Katie to have a one-on-one. So in this one-on-one conversation, is this the setting where all of a sudden Katie just started dropping all of these sort of allegations against people, Gina allegedly, calling out the fact that that Katie is not wearing Asian designers, and she felt that that was a dig to her. Is this the same setting where she talked to you about what Gretchen allegedly said to her at Mastro's and OC? Is this the same setting?
Yes, it was all that same day. Yes. And again, it wasn't coming out. And I made that very clear. She wasn't saying, ooh, I want to give you this information and I want you to do anything with it. We were having a chat about a bunch of different things. Of course, I'm being nosy as you would. I'm like, can I see your reunion dress? Oh, we're going into things, like who, do you know who's filming, this upcoming season, like just having chat. And then I don't know exactly how it came out, but she mentioned she was having, lunch or dinner, with Gretchen and Slade. And that's when this conversation came up. Now, of course, at the time, I think I said something like, oh, you were having dinner with Gretchen. Is she going to be on the next season? Because this is on October. Gretchen hadn't been announced for the season yet. So when she told me that story and she was like, oh, did you hear about Naked Wasted? I was like floored. And I was like, that's crazy. But I hear crazy things every single day. I literally hear off the record stuff, crazy rumors every day. I take it in. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And then we moved on. And then she did bring up the Gina thing. And of course, I've been side-eyeing Gina ever since because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. Like, I thought it was really messed up. And then we went about our day. Like, she left. We ended up, there was an Us Weekly party a few weeks later. I was doing red carpet for that. I was like, hey, I'll see you at the party. We just continued banter. And also I really wanted her to succeed at the reunion. So if I saw something online that I thought would help her, I'd be like, hey girl, check this out. This is, funny. And we just had banters, we'd send TikToks to each other. It was a really light relationship. The only reason it eventually made it to a journalist was because in January, again, this is months later, I've sat it on October, November, December. If I was messy, I would be telling people. I literally left that lunch and didn't really think about it. But in January,
so and this happened. So just so I'm clear, your one-on-one with Katie happened October of 2024.
Correct.
Okay. And before we get into what happened in January, just to clear things up, Can you, because I know that when we watch reality shows, you guys film for hours and things get edited down. So I want you to have the opportunity, Kiki, to just clear the air, to stay out of your own mouth, unedited, uninterrupted. What did Katie say to you about Naked Wasted and what Gretchen allegedly said to her at dinner?
She said, "Did you know that at that Naked Wasted night that Gretchen had to go to the hospital and they found drugs in her system?" And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, they there were drugs in her system. Did she get a report? Did she go to police? Did she go to production? And she was just like, I don't know. And I was just like, how has this never come up? Like, I don't understand. Like, if she, like, why wouldn't? And she was just kind of like, I don't know. I just, none of it really made sense, because I was like, if that happened, I just feel like so many other things would have happened just logically. But I'm just kind of like, that's crazy that she told you that.
Okay. To stop you there, did she tell you in this meeting in October that Jen and Ryan were present during this conversation?
See, that's what I don't think was clear. I don't think I actually realized Jen and Ryan were also out that dinner till later for some reason. Like, maybe she said it. I honestly don't remember. I really
Mm-hmm.
only remember her saying Gretchen and Slade. And then at some point, I did know that Jen and Ryan were also there, but I don't know if I remember if it was that day.
Okay. Did did she intimate to you that Gretchen was trying to get back on OC, was in talks to get back on OC in this conversation?
When I asked her, because I mean, again, when she initially said, "Oh, I went to dinner with Gretchen and Slade," of course I said, like, "Oh, is she going to be on next season?" And she didn't answer. She didn't say anything. But I always take those sort of non-answers as like, "Oh, maybe it makes sense, right? You're making allies. You've come off a season where Jen is not in a great place with Tamra. You're good friends with Jen. We know how Gretchen feels. I understand why the three of you would be at dinner, and so it makes sense why they would be at dinner." And I understand that people get friendly with, all sorts of housewives, after their season to like, so, I was sort of fishing, but she didn't give me any of that. I didn't know for sure.
Okay. When she told you the stuff about Gina, um, did when she mentioned that Gina questioned whether or not her designers were Asian designers, how did she say it in a way that made you feel uncomfortable? Did you feel like the way she reported it to you, it made it appear that Gina said something racist?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why even if you see in the episode the way I said it, I was literally repeating it exactly how Katie said it to me, because she was like I was, I really wanted to feature Asian designers, on the show. And maybe this had been when we were talking about her, like, reunion dress. I don't remember. And I was like, oh yeah.
Hmm.
And she was like, and then, one time I come into the scene and I have an outfit on, and Gina looks at me and goes, "Is that an Asian designer?" And this is what she said to me. She said, I looked at, the camera, I looked at the producers, like, "Did you get that?" And they were just like, and I was like, "They didn't do anything with it. They didn't show it. Why didn't they air it?" And she was just like, "I don't know." And I was just like, mm. And so, like, we just sort of had that, brown girl, black girl thing where it's like, like what you do when someone
Hmm.
says something shady. And so that's kind of what I walked away with that conversation feeling about Gina. Yeah.
Okay. While you were talking to her, did you get and I'm gonna get to January, but when you were talking to her in this one-on-one, did you get the sense that Katie was telling you things off the record? One thing I know about conversations, sometimes you do a pinky swear, like what Drew Sidora, Angela Oakley, and Shamia did, right? Or you say off the record. Were any of those things said like to you from Katie?
I don't think people ever have to say that with me, because I'm not someone that repeats. Like, like, again, I have friendships with a lot of these reality stars, and I always go into every conversation really just assuming like I'm not going to repeat this. I don't really say off the record, because unless I'm coming to you, as a reporter, and we're like, and I'm investigating a story, I'm not going to say like off the record. But she knows I'm not going to, I would assume, repeat it. That's how I assumed. The reason I started to like feel a little bit weird was because as we sort of continued our friendship, she would send me some things here and there. And I started wondering, like, does she think I'm going to do something with this information? I couldn't really tell because, or is she just telling me because she thinks I want to know? Fine. Like, I don't really know.
Yeah, because one thing I know, look, I said this on my own podcast. I'm friends with everybody in the business, almost everybody in the business, right? And I know that when reality stars DM me stuff, I know that a lot of it has to do with the fact that they want me to talk about it. They don't necessarily say talk about this, but they send me stuff. And because my platform isn't he say, she say, I don't base things off of that. I just base things off of what we're watching on the show, my opinion on the shows. And obviously if a story is big that you just can't ignore, then I'll talk about it that way. But I never come to the table like, ooh, someone sent me this DM or X, Y, and Z, because I never want to get in the muddy waters. Did you feel like, okay, should I keep this to myself or should I talk to somebody? Because what happened in January, you said you spoken to a fellow journalist about it. So what happened where you felt the need to talk about it to somebody months later?
Yeah, I had no interest in doing anything with that information. But when January was announced and it was announced that Gretchen was coming to the Real Housewives of Orange County, that is where I did get concerned because now I had a piece of information, which I'm sorry, if these allegations are true, that's illegal. And that is, I don't know. One, I want to get to the bottom of if there's any truth to this story, because like, if so, this like needs to be exposed. And two, like we had just come off of that really dark Roni season with Bryn and all of that. And I truthfully was like, if they were talking about this, because I couldn't think of any other reason they were talking about this at this dinner in October, unless they were thinking that this might be a storyline in the upcoming season. And I said, this is just not something that I think the viewers have the appetite for as a stomach line when we just came up off that Roni season. So I feel like I need to like either find out if this story is true or not, and like just like put an end to it. And if it's not true, like we can just like dead it. Or if there is truth to the story, like we need to find out, because this is actually like it's illegal or it's defamatory, one or the other.
And when you felt this way, you had a conversation with another journalist. What was that conversation like?
And this is where it gets muddy. And this is why, again, like when you see things repeated on different platforms as it goes, the game of telephone is really terrible. But I spoke to one journalist initially. I said, can you help me? Because again, I'm independent. They're legacy media. They have more resources and access than I do. I don't want this attached to me. And I also don't want this story coming to light. I just want to find out if we can find out if there's any truth to the story. That reporter, despite what was out there, never repeated my name, never said, even it was a he or she who found this information and was able, I felt comfortably came back to me that this story was not true. And so I was like, that's fine. I'm comfortable with the story not being true. And I don't really know what to do with it from here other than hope it doesn't come out in the next season. Speaking to the other journalist, it's hard to get into because, as you know, building relationships in this industry requires very intimate, off-the-record conversations about a lot of different things. And the conversation with the second journalist really was centered around that. We were having a very sort of open, back and forth discussion about a lot of different things that, again, I won't get into because it would expose him. But there was a reason why Katie's name came up in that conversation. I can say part of it was him trying to understand my thoughts on her and, trusting her and that sort of thing. And I said, look, I really do like her. We've had a great rapport. There was this one thing, so I wasn't sure, but I'm comfortable the story isn't true. So, I've moved on from it, but I will say like that was like a weird story. I expected that conversation to never leave that bubble of, again, off the record. And unfortunately, that conversation was taken back to Tamra.
How did you find out that conversation was taken back to Tamra?
when Katie texted me at the end of February. I was literally on the tarmac. My flight was about to take off. I'm flying to New York for 2 weeks. I get a text from Katie that says, "Are you around to film today at 5?" And I just did a question mark. And then she wrote, "Your name was brought up on camera." And I did an exclamation point. And I said, "Who and what?" And she said, Tamra. It was about Tamra. And I said, "What was it about?" And she said, "I don't know." And I said, "I'm literally in the air for the next 5 hours." And she was like, "Oh, shoot. Well, let me know when you can." I had no interest in filming. I had no interest in being part of this. I'm panicking. But of course, I'm in the air because I know even though she said she didn't know what it was about, at that point, I know that it had to be something regarding this because I just told this other person. So I texted. He admitted he had told Tamra. So I'm freaking out, like, "Why'd you do this?" And blah, blah, blah. And I go to New York. I have to get work done. I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to go to New York and just do whatever. I'm in New York. I don't hear from Katie again. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm in denial. I'm like, you know what? This is not going to be a thing. I'm going to keep moving on, do my life, whatever. Come back to New York like 3 weeks later, 3 weeks later. I'm at a party and I get reached out to by Orange County producers. And they're like, "So your name has been repeatedly brought up on camera." And, and basically that was how they reached out. And so at that point, I'm just like, and basically what I learned was like, my name was brought up on camera and we're basically being told that you're spreading something that was not told to you. It's not the truth. And that's when I freak out because I'm like, one, I didn't want to be involved with this, but two, I have kind of two options at this point. Like, let this narrative play out. And I don't know what that means, or they're giving me the opportunity, which honestly I'm grateful for because not a lot of people get this opportunity to try to clear my name. And so I agree to film, and that's pretty much it.
When you agreed to film, did the producers tell you you are filming with Gretchen and Gina? Because I'm assuming you would have, I don't know, thought or would have been positioned, wanted to, I'm not clear, film with Katie since the information came from her. So how did that come about?
I believe they wanted me to film with just Gretchen. And what I said to them, and I don't even know but whatever, I'm going to say it because people may not understand. I was only supposed to film with Gretchen. And I said, "Look, there were 3 people at this dinner. Gretchen and Katie were 2 of them. I don't know how comfortable I feel only filming with Gretchen because this is someone who was also part of the story. I would feel more comfortable if someone else was there." And this is okay. And this is where, and again, this may be the messy part, but this was the only way I thought I could clear my name. I said, "I have a piece of information also from that lunch that nobody else would know and would prove that this information was told to me. I would rather her be there. And I'd rather tell her there in that moment what was said. Because honestly, I feel like if I say it to her face, I'll know also if there's any truth to that story." And so I was really the one that pushed for Gina to be there.
Got it. Now, let me go back a little bit. Um, the time you landed in New York when Katie texted you to the time that the producers contacted you, did you and Katie ever have a conversation during that window?
I never heard from her again. And like again, that's why I kind of thought like this won't be a thing. I had no idea. And this in the time that I was in New York, they had gone to New Orleans and all that stuff that we see playing out had happened. She never contacted me, told me any of that happened. I had no clue any of that had gone down, which is why, again, while I'm watching it, it's shocking because I'm thinking, well, girl, you could have like reached out to me and said like, they're saying your name, they're saying I said this to you, but I never heard from her again after that day. I had no clue how deep it had gone in New Orleans.
When you got the call from the producers, did you have any communication with Katie before the scene with Gretchen and Gina, or even afterwards?
I hadn't talked to no, I mean, I never heard from Katie ever again. Um, I did speak with Gretchen. Oh, well, I kind of spoke with Gretchen only because, again, when this came out, now Gretchen has reached out. Her and Sheena Shea, who I'm good friends with, Sheena Shea, are friends. And so then Sheena, because Gretchen's like, who is this person, Kiki Monique, who's spreading these things about me? Because Gretchen, at this point, Gretchen thinks I'm just like some, again, crazy blogger who's just spreading rumors about her. But she knows that I'm friends with Sheena. So she's trying to like get to the bottom of it. I said, look, I want nothing to do with this. Like, I promise you, like, I wasn't trying to like spread rumors. Like, I was just trying to get to the bottom of whether the story was real. Because also Sheena's looking at me crazy, like, girl, like, this is, like, the whole thing was like, I was like, I want nothing to do with this. This was not the opposite of what my intention is happening right now.
I want to ask you this because obviously you watch the season and the episodes just like we all have, right? They're in New Orleans, the OC Housewives, and this conversation does come up where they talk about whether or not Gretchen said these things. Once again, the housewives call Katie to the carpet, and they say, "Well, call her." And Katie said she does not want to film. Um, did Katie ever contact you? Well, like when she contacted you, was that when you were on the plane or was that after the fact?
No, I was literally like on the tarmac about to take off. So all of that conversation happened. So I did respond to her. She reached out. She asked me if I wanted to film. I didn't say yes or no. I was, again, in shock. I was like, question mark, exclamation point. What is this about? What am I filming about? What do you talk? Because she wanted me to get on the phone at 5 p.m. that day to film something, but she wasn't telling me what it was about. And I'm just like, but what is it?
She was in New Orleans. So she was in New Orleans when she texted
No,
you.
this was February 28th. I got that text. And they didn't go to
Wait,
New
okay,
Orleans
hold up.
until March.
Okay, so because we're getting somewhere here. Katie texts you. They want you to film in February.
February 28th is when I got the text.
They filmed New Orleans in March. So when they said reach out to her, and she said she doesn't want to film, she never contacted you at all while she was in New Orleans.
No, I never heard from her again after February 28th.
When you saw that moment, do you think, because again, I don't know Katie from a can of paint, right? But I'm basing my opinions on her, like me and the audience watching the show. But when you saw that scene in New Orleans, did you feel like Katie was talking about you and her texting a month before? Or did you look at that and say, oh my gosh, Katie's lying once again?
No, I looked at it as she was sort of telling half truth. I think that's like she said, I think she was saying, I reached out her, she's not interested, which is true. I was absolutely not, because I did not get back to her. But what wasn't true was saying she never responded, because that wasn't true. I responded and I asked you what it was about, and you said you didn't know. So that part wasn't true, because again, I wanted to know, because once she knew that this was all being brought out, I do think, again, I had been a really good friend to her at that point. I think it would have made sense for her to just be honest with me and actually confront me and be like, girl, did you go tell people about this? Because then, like, I would have been like, well, damn, like I did, but like, I was trying to like squash the story because like, but I would have felt, I would have felt bad.
Yeah. So look, it's one of those things too where, and listen, this is me being in the seat, and it's the reason why I make sure as much as I can to not involve myself in the sort of ragamuffin of the telephone game, because it is tricky, it's dicey, based on this era of reality television and social media and contact and people being in contact with radio hosts, journalists, bloggers, anyone, because unfortunately, it does now become part of the storyline. When you received that phone call for production and you did the scene with Gretchen and Gina, when you left the scene, did you feel like, oh, fuck, what did I just get myself into? Did I just ruin my career?
I mean, I think I felt that way from the moment even before I filmed, because I'm thinking like, I don't know how to like navigate out of this because, this is my brand, and like it's fun to be called quote a gossip girl, but nobody wants to think that they like can't have conversations with you that aren't going to be taken elsewhere. And so that was the part that was really hurting me, because I felt like I was in this position where I didn't put myself in this position. I didn't go to a housewife. I didn't try to involve myself, and I wasn't trying to bring this to camera, but someone I trusted did. And it bit me in the ass.
Are you and the journalist friends today? Have y'all talked about this?
I don't know, like I'm not someone who likes to carry grudges, but I haven't heard from him, so I don't know.
When you saw Gretchen and Gina's reaction in real time, in that moment, Kiki, at that table, you told this information, you saw the reaction. Did you believe that they were telling you the truth?
What I believed was when Gina told me her explanation, and that sounded like it made sense. And Gina has been, ever since, like I've met her, I've seen her again, like she's been really kind. And so like I don't really feel like I have any reason to like hold that against her. What I will say is, and this, I mean, not to, hate on, all reality stars. All reality stars are like fibbers, liars. It's kind of like built into their DNA sometimes. It's like they were just like exaggerating the truth, or like doing this. I don't know sometimes who's lying and who's telling the truth. What I was trying to get to at this point was, I just want you guys to know that I'm telling the truth so I can back away, and then you guys can fight amongst yourselves about who's the liars and who's not. Because like I just want to like remove myself and just put it out there and then back away. I don't know. Like, I think that there's multiple theories that could be true. I just don't know, because again, it's hard for me now when only one person keeps basically calling me a liar to side with them even, right? Because you're like, even if I wanted to side with you, you're still calling me a liar. So then how can I side with you? Well,
who's calling you a liar?
Katie, by saying she never told me repeatedly over. So it's like, if she just admitted it, then like maybe we could get somewhere, but I just don't know why she won't admit it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, look, I appreciate you for being completely honest. No one's perfect. You have opted your mistake to be seen as somebody who's honest about it, right? You're like, look, we had a conversation. Um, I knew that it wasn't something that I should go back and tell people, but I did tell a trusted journalist. Listen, we've all done that, right? And for you, you just felt like, okay, this is something that I want to share with somebody. I will say what I do want the world to know is this. It's one thing if Kiki Monique on her big platform told Dorinda, so girl, guess what I heard? I heard something. That to me would be different. It would be different if you use your platform like other people do, and that's no shade. We listen. We all have our platform that works for our brand. I've been listening to you for years. You never, based on my listening skills, intimated secret conversations for virality, right? And that was the one thing I really understood immediately. Like, I think people are missing the fact that you did not go on your own platform or on anyone's platform and publicly said this. You had an intimate conversation. It got out unbeknownst to you, even knowing it would. And I think people also need to understand this too. You are employed by Radio Andy, who works obviously connection with Bravo. Like I think people need to understand that you're not somebody that is just out there looking for the come up. You're employed by Radio Andy, associated with Bravo, meeting the Andy Cohen, obviously, and they called you and you wanted to do your due diligence. That's what I got from it. You can stop me if I got it wrong.
Well, yeah, I
Kiki.
mean, because that's the thing. I mean, I think even Katie said herself, she followed me for my true crime content. Obviously, if I hear something that sounds criminal, I'm sorry. Like, if I feel a reason that it needs to be investigated, it needs to be investigated. And I did feel like at the time, once Gretchen was announced she was coming back, if there was any truth to the story, I needed to investigate and find out if the story was true, period. Like I was never going to publish it on my platform unless I found there was, I had a toxicology report that proved, this actually did happen.
Do you feel like you owe Katie an apology for having an intimate conversation and you did go and tell somebody else?
I would say that yes, I would apologize, because the minute I decided to put on my true crime reporter hat and take it to investigate, I should have said, "Oh, girl, I know you told me the story. I wasn't going to do anything with it, but I do want to investigate it. I'm not going to publish it." And I should have given her the heads up that that was my plan, and that was the one thing I should have done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Based on you watching these episodes, do you feel like when it comes to Katie, again, I'm basing my opinion on Katie off of the episodes I'm watching with the audience. Obviously, Katie, biggest mistake to me, and this is me speaking as a producer who produced for 20 years, right? Almost. Once your hand is caught in the cookie jar, unfortunately, you have to own it immediately. And it's just something you have to do. It doesn't feel good and it's tough, but you signed up to be real and we want you to be real. Do you think when it comes to Katie that she just has a problem with owning the truth in the moment because she's afraid of the immediate backlash from the girls? Or do you think just Katie is just a flat out liar and this sociopath that she's being painted out to be by some of the girls and some of the viewers?
I mean, before I probably would have just assumed that she was scared to get caught. Recently, it's felt very pathological, because I'm just this feels unnecessary at the lengths we're going. Now I think it's she's at a point, because what we know is it doesn't really matter what she does. Her fans will side with her. So now I think she knows she can lean into saying whatever she wants, truth or otherwise, and her fans will make gymnastics to, find a way to back her up. So I don't know. I think I honestly, I can't even tell you. I don't even know anymore, because the person that I met is not the person that I've experienced recently.
Do you have any intentions of going on Watch What Happens Live this season?
Oh my God. Well, the thing is, I've been on Watch What Happens Live as a bartender twice, and I've always, whenever I go, I'm like, when am I going to get on the chair? So it's not beyond the realm of me being Andy Cohen is my boss. It's not like I can't, I obviously always am like, hey guys, I'm going to be in New York. Yeah, but not because it's something I do.
You should be on. I want to see you there on a Thursday night. Maybe next day, Heather Bro. I do want to ask you before I let you go. You're a busy woman, but before I let you go, I do want to ask you this. You're watching the episodes like we are. Based on you watching the episodes and based on your interaction with Katie face to face, Gina face to face, Gretchen face to face, and even Jen, right? Just being in communication with her via Zoom. What does Kiki Monique believe? Put on your true crime hat, put on your producer hat, put on the hat of a woman who's been around these girls. Do you believe that Gretchen told Katie that she allegedly did get drugged the night of Naked Wasted while she was at dinner with Katie?
The only reason, I'm going to give you two answers, but I will answer. The reason I will say no was because, again, when I got back my initial information and the information that I gathered, which I actually think I said on camera, but they didn't play, because there was more to it made sense. It didn't make sense that she said it. And so I was like, I feel like she didn't say it. But what I do believe is that Naked Wasted absolutely came up at that dinner. I believe the word hospital was absolutely used. Now, whether someone heard hospital and made assumptions about why would you go to the hospital and ran with it, or whether they heard something specifically about being in the hospital, that's the part I don't know. But I do believe the word hospital was used at that dinner, and I do believe Naked Wasted came up.
Yeah. No, me and Alexis Molino even conversed about this on this very podcast about whether or not the assumption of hospital equated to maybe Katie thinking she was drugged. Which, listen, in Katie's defense, I would understand because you're only going to the hospital. You felt like I'm assuming you felt drugged or whatever. And look, Gretchen is caught on camera mentioning the hospital twice, so it is plausible, and that's why my theory is I believe Gretchen did tell Katie the hospital. I do believe that Katie may have misinterpreted. I don't know, but that's what I gather from it, which is why for me, I think they both have been caught lying. I think Katie has obviously been seen as somebody that says no, 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 no. Then the next episode says, okay, I actually did do this, right? And I think because Gretchen got caught saying hospital twice, I do believe you that the hospital thing was used. Again, whether or not the word root through the drug was used, I think we'll have to keep watching this season to hopefully find out that answer. Kiki Monique, what would you like to say to the Bravo audience, to the Raindrops, when it comes to you? Are you okay? Have you been bullied online? Have people been mean to you in your DMs and comments?
I mean, yeah. Am I getting bullied? Absolutely. And like, have I just had to sort of like ignore it and walk away? Of course. And like, will I always have this permanent stain attached to me because of this? Absolutely. But I can't let that stop my progress. Like I'm gonna keep moving on. I have like rebuilding with, the people that I care about in this industry the most, the people like you and the other people I have, they know me. And so I'm glad that I haven't ruined those relationships because, again, like all you have in this business is your reputation. And I obviously care what, obviously, followers and people out there who are viewing me, and this might be the first introduction they have for me, is this show. And so I have rebuilding to do, and whether I'll ever get it with a lot of people, I don't know. Hopefully the bullying will temper down because look, we have a whole other half a season to go. I'm hoping that there's way more drama that is less interesting than me, and then other people will start getting bullied. But I will say that like I know also other women on the show are now getting bullied, and I just don't think that's fair because I've met a lot of these women, and at the end of the day, they're all cool.
Yeah, and you're cool. And look, I before I let you go, I do want to remind the audience of this. You haven't held yourself accountable, right? You have said, look, I apologize to Katie because at the end of the day, she did tell me something that I should not have repeated to people. And you admitted that that was a big mistake for you. So I do want the audience to understand that you're not here doubling down on the fact we all make mistakes. I think the lesson in this is not just for you, it's for me, it's for everybody. That when it comes to sometimes reality stars confiding in you, you do have to sometimes ask yourself, am I being told this to release it? Or you do sometimes have to say, I don't, or sometimes stop and say, look, I don't want to talk about any rumor or anything you heard because I don't want my name mentioned. And I'm learning from this situation when it comes to you as well that look, maybe sometimes it is our job, Kiki Monique, to even tell reality stars, you know what, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
If it, I just do not want to hear it because what I don't want is, well, I only told this person, and then you become the story. So look, guys, give Kiki Monique a break, cut her some slack. She's not the first, nor will she be the last. But I think for all of us, at the end of the day, this is where we can rally together, Raindrops and Bravo listeners and audiences, and say, at least we got a good fucking season out of it because I'm enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I want people to, at the end of the day, like, if I was not a part of this, I would literally, like, I was like, I literally could sit outside of myself and be like laughing about this of like how crazy it is and ridiculous. And at the end of the day, it's just a show. And I think a lot of people need to like
Yeah.
go touch grass and then come back and watch your show. But it's not that serious.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna be okay. Katie's thriving. She's getting more followers by the day. This is not hurting her at all. She'll be okay. I promise you.
Yeah, and you'll be okay. I want you to know you'll be okay. This too shall pass. Listen,
Okay.
it's tough. And listen, one thing I will say is this: at the end of the day, you will be in the history books. When people listen, Kiki Monique, I can always find things to like smile at because it ain't that serious. Like it's reality television, it's silly, it's fun, whatever. When it comes to season 19, just know you will go down in the history books as the most talked about person next to Katie Janela. Like, I just want you to know that. And at the end of the day, these are great stories that you can have off the record at dinner. Okay?
I will say the only thing I do like I am questioning is like, I know that there was a source in my I did a Us Weekly. I talked about this in Us Weekly, and in that at the end of it, there was something about like there's more to this Kiki story that you don't know. And I'm like, is there? Wait, what do I not know? Like now I'm concerned. Are you trying to drag me into season 20? Please don't. I can't.
Well, girl, listen, honey, keep your phone on, child. I'm about to call you back, girl, if you're still mentioned if it's season. Just know that. But no, all jokes aside, Kiki Monique, please let the raindrops know where they can find you, follow you, and support your amazing radio show, Reality Check with Dorinda Medley.
Yeah, well, you can always follow me on all platforms at The Talk of Shame. I'm obviously TikTok and IG are my two platforms that are my favorite. And weekdays on Radio Andy, Reality Check with Dorinda Medley. We talk about all things reality.
Yay! Thank you, Kiki Monique. And listen, girl, I will see you or hear your name on the next episode of OC. Okay?
I
Love you, dog.